On July 26, 2025, Arsenal made a huge move, signing Viktor Gyökeres from Sporting CP for €66 million. Not bad for a guy who once couldn't even get a Premier League appearance at Brighton. Gyökeres is now one of the most feared strikers in the world, having scored 97 goals and provided 28 assists in just 102 games for Sporting. But that raises the question, how did Brighton let a monster like this slip through their fingers? And more importantly, why did Viktor Gyökeres flop in the Premier League the first time around? Let's find out. Brighton's $64 million mistake. Brighton signed Gyökeres back in 2018, but in 3 years he played just 8 games, scoring once and assisting once. They used him mostly in minor cup games and eventually sold him for €1.2 million, a deal that now looks like a total joke. So, what went wrong? When asked about why Gyökeres' first stint in the Premier League didn't work out, Brighton's CEO said that players develop at different rates, and sometimes pathways are unavoidably blocked, so a loan or permanent move is a better option. We can interpret this as him saying Gyökeres wasn't developing fast enough, and they had to let him go to allow him to become the player he is today. But the evidence suggests that this is only a white lie, told to save face and preserve Brighton's reputation for having excellent talent ID. The truth is that the coaches, scouts, and manager made a costly mistake, which made it impossible for Gyökeres to thrive at Brighton. The positioning problem. Before Brighton, Gyökeres played as a winger for EF Broma Pokarna in Sweden at the age of 16. But his coaches quickly realized he had power, explosiveness, and killer finishing instincts, so they converted him into a striker. And it worked. He scored 24 goals and 10 assists in 40 appearances, which earned him his move to England. But at Brighton, they tried to turn him back into a winger, and that's where the disaster began. Why it never worked at Brighton. Brighton wanted technical wide players. Manager Chris Hughton needed creative wingers to support the central striker. But Gyökeres was never that guy. He was a direct physical forward, not a finesse dribbler. They didn't trust him as a striker. Even after showing promise in the youth team, 7 goals in 9 games, Brighton rarely played him up front in first-team matches. Constant position switches. Every time he looked close to a breakthrough, the powers at Brighton would move him back to the wing in the next match. No event highlighted this bizarre situation as much as the events that played out at the end of the 2018 Premier League season. Chris Hughton had just been sacked, and Graham Potter was brought in to revitalize the team. Suddenly, Gyökeres found himself with another chance to break into the first team. In a match against Tottenham's under-23 team, Gyökeres started the game as a striker and scored. Potter must have noticed, and a few days later, Gyökeres was called up to the first team to play in the EFL Cup tie against Southampton. Unfortunately, he was deployed on the wing once more, where he, unsurprisingly, struggled to make any meaningful impact. Brighton lost the game and were knocked out of the competition. Gyökeres was sent back to the under-23s and would not play for the first team again until the FA Cup started in January 2019. Even then, he only played 9 minutes in total as a center forward. By the end of the season, he had made a grand total of 5 appearances for Brighton's main squad, and he finished with 0 goals and 0 assists for them. Mental toll and mismanagement. Eventually, Brighton loaned him out to St. Pauli, then Swansea, then Coventry, but most of those clubs used him, you guessed it, on the wing. Loan number 1, at St. Pauli, Germany. Played over 70% of his games on the wing. 7 goals, 4 assists in 28 games. Decent, but not enough to impress Brighton, so they shipped him out again. Loan number 2, at Swansea, Championship. Played as a striker, but was rusty. While Swansea manager Steve Cooper had the right idea playing Viktor Gyökeres as a center forward, Gyökeres was arriving on the back of a season where he mostly played as a winger. He needed a bit of time to settle in up front in a tougher league. One of the staff at Swansea claimed that he looked lost at times. So after only 3 months with Swansea, Gyökeres barely managed to start more than 2 games, his only goal for the championship side coming in the FA Cup match against League 2 Stevenage. This lack of playtime didn't sit right with Brighton, so they recalled him in January of 2021. Loan number 3, at Coventry. With the promise of more minutes, they allowed Coventry to sign him on loan. As Gyökeres returned to the championship, he got 2 games off the bat as part of a 4-4-2 center-forward pairing, and rewarded Coventry's trust with a goal. But in the next game, Coventry switched to a 4-3-3, and Gyökeres found himself on the wing once again. His form dropped from then on, and he began to struggle for game time. He eventually got relegated to just being Coventry's backup striker, but still finished the season with 2 more goals for the club, despite his limited playtime. By the time he was 23, Gyökeres had barely played as a center forward in a top league and had no Premier League experience. So when Coventry came calling for a permanent deal worth €1.2 million, just $200,000 above the amount they signed him for, Brighton let him go. Biggest mistake of their life. The Coventry turnaround.
Coventry had actually seen what others missed. They knew they had just pulled off the biggest transfer robbery in football history and walked away more than happy with the deal. You see, while Gyökeres had his flaws, the Coventry backroom staff recognized his strong mentality, immense work rate, and laser-like focus. They had a game plan to transform him into the deadliest striker in the championship, and that's exactly what they did. They played Gyökeres as a true number 9 and built a system around his strengths. The result? First season, 18 goals plus 5 assists in 44 games. Second season, 22 goals plus 12 assists in 50 games. Named in the championship team of the season, he went from being a forgotten winger to the most dangerous striker in the league. The big breakthrough. Brighton looked on in dismay as he continued to get better with each game, and in 2023, Sporting CP signed him for €24 million. In Portugal, he exploded. 97 goals, 28 assists, 102 games, winning multiple trophies and individual awards along the way. 2 years after joining Sporting CP, Arsenal has just paid €66 million for him. All the while, we have Brighton left watching in regret at their former wonderkid blazing a trail. Will he flop again in the Premier League? Here's the thing, Gyökeres isn't the same player anymore. Yes, he's a late bloomer, but he's got strength, ball-carrying power, lethal finishing, work rate, and has 220 career goals and 65 assists to his name. This time, he's joining the Premier League as a complete striker. And if Arsenal use him right, he could be the missing piece in their attack, the piece to finally end their trophy drought. What do you think? Will Viktor Gyökeres dominate at Arsenal, or will the Premier League humble him again? Drop your predictions in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more football breakdowns like this one.